Hey, what's up guys? It's Kat. I am so excited to talk to you about the book and the author that we're going to talk about today. The author is Monica James. She's a pretty well-known author at this point, which is really exciting. And the book is called Bad Saint. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about Monica James a little bit. So her series, which was I think the first series that she released, is called I Surrender series, and there's 4 books. And that series is one of my literally top 3 favorite of all time. It was, I think, the second book that book I guess, that I had read in the romance genre. I did read 50 Shades of Grey first because everybody was talking about it. And I've always been a reader. I started reading when I was in high school, and my friends and I used to pass around Danielle Steele books. And, you know, I just continued reading from there. I've read Jodi Picoult, I've read, you know, historical fiction, I've read Nicholas Sparks, I've read a lot. I like to read. So, because everyone was talking about 50 Shades, I started reading, you know, I read that. And then I loved that it was a love story, and I loved the characters. And so I thought, well, there's got to be other stuff out there like this. And I stumbled upon the I Surrender series by Monica James. I was completely blown away. I could not believe that I could get that emotionally connected to a story, that I could get that emotionally connected to fictional characters, that I could read a story that completely encompassed everything about love that I love, and that it could be so relatable and so real, and I was hooked. That was it. I almost completely exclusively read romance now because of that. So I was very lucky because in the fall, it was the fall, late winter, or late fall, early winter, Monica went on her Facebook page, which I follow, and said that she was coming to the States to do signings, and she would, while she was here, if anyone wanted to buy any of her books, she would post them while they're here to save us shipping because she's from Australia. So I jumped on it. I've kind of recently got back into buying paperbacks of my favorite books. I mainly read on a Kindle, but because this is one of my absolute favorites, I jumped on it. And so when she was here, she mailed them out, and so many lucky ones of us have gotten it. And the best part is that she signed it to me, all of them, all 4 of them. They sit in a very special place on my nightstand, and I absolutely love them. So that being said, I want to talk to you just a smidge again, like I said, about I Surrender series. So it's Jasper and Ava, and they just are in my heart. I don't know how else to describe it. She actually, Jasper is a rock star, rising rock star, and Ava and him meet kind of, you know, unexpectedly, and she's just coming off of a breakup, and he just is this amazing man. And they meet, and the first night, you know, she kind of goes out after having this breakup, and her friend kind of drags her out, and she's not looking for anything, and they go to I think it's a party, and she's melancholy, she's feeling down, so she walks away from the party, and she goes and kind of stands off to the side, and she's just kind of thinking about life and whatnot. He comes over, and they start talking, and at one point he wraps his arms around her, and they just have this, like, he just knew that she needed that, and they're strangers, but he just knew she needed that. And I just, yeah, that was about it for me. I was like, oh, I fell for him pretty hard at that point. Something that's really funny, and I know that you guys that read romance and love stories as much as I do will understand that there's little points in books that really speak to you. That was a point in the book that really spoke to me. There's lots of parts of this series that spoke to me, but something very much that I forever will associate with them and these books is 3 songs. They're all in the books in some way, shape, or form. First one is they're in a bar, and it's a rock and roll bar. It sounded so cool, rock and roll bar, but it's a bar that it's a bar, and in the background is playing The Kill by 30 Seconds to Mars, and she says that Ava says that's what's playing in the background. So I will forever associate that song with this book. Then Jasper's performing live one night, and she's there with her friend to see him, and she's supporting him, and it's so romantic, and it's wonderful, and they're having a good time, and they're pretty solid in their relationship at that point. And he sings The Cutting Crew, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight, which is an 80s song. That's my genre, or not my genre, that's my decade. And I remember I loved that song back then, and then he sang it, and so that was like, arrows pointing at me, how I connected with the story. And then the last song, and there's other songs, but these are the three that really hit me. At the very pivotal point in their story, Jasper gets behind the piano, and I can barely talk about it. I get teary. Anyway, he gets behind the piano and he starts playing and singing to her When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars. I can't even. I actually have to turn the song off if I hear it. I have to be in the right frame of mind to actually listen to it, because it just takes me right back to that scene, and I was crying in the book, and look at me, I get tears in my eyes now. Oh, I love it. It's the best. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about with this series. You have to read that series. Absolutely. It's one of my favorites. I have read almost everything, more than half of what she's written. I think she's written me over 13 books now, and I've read a whole bunch of them, not all of them. I won't go into all those because I kind of feel like I want to do videos on those as well. So, but she's written a whole bunch of books. I've read a whole bunch of them. She's amazing. She deserves all the success she has coming to her, and I feel very lucky that I was able to get on her ARC team, and that was like a highlight of the past couple months of this year that I was able to do that. So thank you, Monica. And let's talk about Bad Saint. Bad Saint is part of a trilogy that she's going to be having come out. This is the first book. It's the All the Pretty Things trilogy. The second book gets released in July. So Bad Saint is about Willow and Saint. And I am striving in my videos not to I want to give you the plot so you understand and you hear from me what I connected with and things that I liked about the story. So I don't want to give too much of the story away, because it's one of those books that, I want you to read it, because it's really good and there's a lot to it, very meaty. And that being said, it starts with a warning, because this Bad Saint is different than all of her other books, I would say, in that it's dark. It does come with a warning, just to warn you. It's not, I know that there's some really dark stuff out there. I don't usually read that. I have read dark romance, but that being said, it does come with a warning, and I'm really going to try to make sure that I don't give too much away to you when I talk about it, because it's dark and it's meaty and it's, there's a lot to it and a lot of detail, and you give one thing away and then there goes the plot. In any case, it's about Willow and Saint, and Willow, it hits the ground running, and you get a little bit, a couple chapters about Willow, maybe one or two. The chapters are very long. There's a lot to them, and which is really great. and it's told from Willow's perspective, but at the beginning of each chapter, you get a bit from Saint. And I like when we can hear from both characters. So I really liked that we were going to get something from him as well. If we weren't going to get a full chapter from him, you obviously get the dialogue that they have back and forth, but those little snippets at the beginning of each chapter are him specifically. So you kind of get his mind frame and where he is along with their story. So you like I said, you hit the ground running, and you get a little bit of Willow, a little bit of background, so you understand who she is and where she's coming from. And it's sad. She had kind of a creepy situation happen at home, and she got out of there, and she talks about her looks, and she's a young model in LA, and how her looks have kind of worked against her a bit before, and now she's a model, and her looks have her be able to stand on her own 2 feet and take care of herself, but she feels very alone in the world. Her father had passed away, and he was her, they had a good family until that happened, and her mom kind of went off the rails after that happened. And so Willow has felt very alone, and her dad passed, and her mom, Willow left home pretty quick after when she could, and she's alone. So she is looking for somebody else. She's happy when she finds somebody else. And she kind of has this whirlwind romance and ends up getting married after knowing this man for 6 weeks. And she's the type of person who always looks for the good in people and feels like she's come from bad into good, and she can take care of herself, and she's gonna make her life great. And there's this kind of innocence about the way she looks at things, but you understand that, and I think that's a great quality. She wants to see the good in everything, and here comes this man, and he only has eyes for her, and he treats her well, and they're in love, and she trusts him, and she understands that it's a little fast, but she believes in it. And they're on their honeymoon, and she gets kidnapped. I mean, it's pretty scary, right? They're in the middle of, he's whisked her away to the other side of the world, and it's this, fairy tale, and then she gets kidnapped. And first of all, it's a dark romance, so it's not going to be pretty. But the guys that kidnap her are pretty brutal, and they don't really care. They look at her like a piece of meat. They treat her terribly, and she's terrified, and understandably. Now, one of the kidnappers, though, she notices right away that he's brutal, but yet she sees something in his eyes, and they're all wearing masks all the time, so she doesn't see their faces. So, but his eyes, she sees something in his eyes, and she knows that he's not as bad as the other guys are. And her body kind of responds to him, and she's pissed about that. She's kept herself pure until marriage, and she was on the first day of her honeymoon, so it doesn't sound like that changed. And she kind of gets out of these 3 men that she's been kidnapped, and she's being taken to Russia, and she's being given to someone, and in that gross kind of slave trade way. So that's a lot. As the story goes on, and it's really well written, because your heart is clenched the whole time. Like I said, she knows there's something different about Saint, and she doesn't know all their names, but she kind of identifies each of them, you know, one guy is the guy with the mole under his eye. You know, she gives them all names so she can keep them, she can keep them straight. And she hears one of them call him Saint, so she knows that that's the one with the eyes, the one that she sees that's a little different. He treats her, although still very roughly, and doesn't give her any favors. He, in a lot of ways, does treat her a little bit gentler, but yet not. And she fights them all every step of the way with her attitude, with her defiance. Physically, she takes every opportunity she can to try to get away and to try to fight against them, and she doesn't make it easy on them. And she kind of decides, she's got to get out of here. She's got to get back to her husband, and she doesn't understand why it's happening, and she just keeps going, keeps at it. And you hear from his perspective that why doesn't she just give up? He tells her along the way that it's his job to break her before she gets to where she's going. And then you hear from him that the reason why he wants to break her is because he knows where she's going is worse than she could possibly ever imagine. So if he breaks her on the boat before they get there, maybe it will be easier on her, even though it's not going to be easy. So, but he does give her little favors, and she does see that he seems to sort of, like, he's in the wrong situation. Like, he's not this brutal guy, but yet he is. So she's confused, and she doesn't understand why she's attracted to him. And he humiliates her, and she cannot trust any of them. Or I should say, she can't trust that the one guy is not going to go against the other two. I mean, it's chaos, and written really well, scary, but yet there's this undercurrent of vulnerability and emotion that Monica James writes so well that you're on the edge of your seat. And with this book in particular, every couple pages there's a twist, there's a turn, you find something else out, you keep getting sucked in deeper and deeper, and it's really amazing. Something that really was a lot for me to read, that really drew me in emotionally, was Willow gets to the point where it's just been absolute chaos, and she decides that if her life ends now, she welcomes the peace. And it was really sad, because she said that she used to believe in God, and she thought that whenever she died that her dad would be waiting for her, and she doesn't believe that anymore, and she doesn't really care, and she would rather die than to go forward in her life. And that's really sad. One thing leads to another, and in the story they wind up on a deserted island, and they have to survive, and there's nothing. And some things have washed up on shore from the boat they were on, and to me that's really scary. I can't imagine being on a deserted island, especially with somebody that kidnapped you and is this brutal guy and is taking you to an even more horrible person, and why all that's going on with them. And at this point in the book, that Saint feels something for her, and that he's tortured, and that there's something greater to his story that we don't know yet. We have a couple little snippets. We know a lot about Willow because we've gotten the book from her perspective the whole time. And we know something about him because we hear his dialogue, but we don't know his full story yet. And when we hear his full story, this was a turn that the book took that you're like, oh my gosh. And as I'm reading it and I'm saying to myself, it's a no-win situation. Willow is saying that even if they're rescued, it'll be worse, because at least when they're on the island, things kind of stand still and it's not as bad. And think about it. They're on a deserted island with they're eating fish and coconuts, and they are relying on rainwater for fresh water, and they have some stuff that has washed up on shore, but that is better than where she's going. I mean, yikes, right? It was really cute because this chicken, they have a chicken that comes around that they kind of adopt as their pets. Willow kind of adopts as her pet. And it's really cute because her name's Harriet Pot Pie, and she's really cute. And I love her little part of the story. She's like her own little character, and it's really cute. Some levity in this really horrible situation. At one point, they're having conversation, and this was kind of crazy for me. Willow asks him when his birthday is, and he tells her, and she says, "Oh, you're a Scorpio," and his birthday's in November 18th or something, November. And she talks about the star sign and the birth sign, and the birth sign, I think, and talks about Scorpio and what you know about Scorpios. They're loyal, they can, and she tells him all the stuff that she knows, and it seems to fit him very well. And then he says, well, what sign are you? And she says, well, I'm a Cancer. And she tells him that her birthday is June 24th. And that's my birthday. And I was like, whoa. And I mean, it's just funny. Obviously, there's a million other people in the world who have the birthday June 24th, but that's my birthday. And here, one of my favorite authors wrote a book and happens to have my birthday in it. Wow. But then, the fact that he's a Scorpio, Saint is a Scorpio, my husband's a Scorpio, I'm a Cancer, he's a Scorpio. So it was like, hello, book. I was supposed to be reading this book. It's a sign. Bad Saint ends in a cliffhanger. I don't even know what to say about that. I'm such a baby. If I know a book is going to end in a cliffhanger, I won't read it until the other one has come out. I know it's come up with some of my author friends that they know that with a series, people usually, they like to read the series all together. So, and I'm like that. I am. So, especially now that this one ended in a cliffhanger, I need to know what happens. It left off on a huge cliff. I need to know. I can't wait for the second book to come out. It's called Fallen Saint. Like I said, it comes out in July, this July. I'm dying. I will be chomping at the bit, waiting for this book to come out. I will probably reread Bad Saint when I know that I can get Fallen Saint, because I really like keeping it fresh in my mind. I will most certainly do a follow-up video for that, because whoa, this is an amazing story. I really liked that Monica James stepped out of her usual writing. I like all of her books. All of her books are different, but yet her characters speak to me. I like her men. I like the way she writes them. I like the women. They've been all different ages, from all different walks of life. The stories are original, but I like that she stepped out of her zone, so to speak, and wrote this dark romance. It's very different for her. And to me, I like to grow as a person. I imagine if I was an author, I would like to grow as an author and step out of my comfort zone and try something new. And it worked. This book is amazing. I highly recommend any of her books. Any of them. This one, absolutely. Bad Saint, 5 stars. 5 amazing stars. So put it on your to be read list. It comes out, like I said, May 6th. Absolutely amazing. Let me know if you've read it in the comments below. I always tell you, definitely make sure to let me know any authors that you have read that you really like, or what's your top 3 favorite series ever, your top favorite authors. I would love to hear back from you about that. Thanks so much for stopping by today. See you soon.